So we're going to answer this question today about weight shift in the downswing. What is the weight shift in the downswing? If I stay centered on the backswing, so not sway, should my hips go forward? This is with irons, or not go beyond the starting position. This is what Chris is asking. I've got my swing catalyst on force plate. Let's show you what happens with some ideas of weight shift. So let's hit one and show you what happens on the plate here. Okay, so interesting for me at the start with pressure shift, weight shift. Look at top right here. Look at how my pressure goes 84%. Well, if we go back to the start, actually, before the start, I'm 100% lead, I'm 100% trail, I'm 100% lead almost, and then to start the swing, moving 81 onto my trail foot as I start, and you'll see a little hip bump. So for someone who's trying to get their lower body more active than they've ever have in their golf swing, I'm very much starting this way. You know, I'm really starting to get going, like a goalkeeper getting ready to go. Now, I'm not starting static. Lots of golfers start really static and then try to have a big shift. What you'll find with pressure shifts and weight shifts and most things in the golf swing, it's what comes before the resulting action that you're trying to fix is where you need to actually make the changes. It's not actually like, that's what I mean by that. If you're wrong in this position, for argument's sake, it's what's happened before that. It's not just trying to fix this position. It's one of the biggest problems with golf coaching, certainly on the old tube where they're just after your clicks. Well, most of them don't bother even learning because it doesn't get you clicks if you learn to be a better coach. So I'm 85% as I start my backswing, as I pull away onto my trail side, and I've had a hit, bump, shift. So I'm out of those two yellow lines. So in effect, I've kind of bumped this way as I start. So to start the swing, I'm bumping across onto my trail side. But now I want to get this club going back and up round over my head. So what you're going to start seeing me do is recenter. So physically recentering with my hips back to where I started. Now my pressures are also recentering, look, 60% trail foot at this stage. As I put it over my head, I finish at the top. So in transition, where I've rotated my hips and recentered, I'm now nearly 50-50, slightly more on my lead foot now. So think about that. I've gone trail, recenter, and then as I'm finishing my backswing, I'm already starting to try and go that way with my pressure. That doesn't mean I'm shifting this way, as you can see from the yellow lines, but I am starting to pressure up this side because I want to load this side up to get out. And this is a massive problem for golfers, why they struggle to strike so often, is their pressure shifts are so two-dimensional because they've been taught to go onto right foot, get onto lead foot, where you've actually got to start using the 3D forces that we measure in this plate, where we've got torque and verticals and horizontals that you're trying to manage. Now downswing, as I saw a bump on the backswing, you're going to see a bit of a bump on the downswing, but it's not huge. Look, my hips are driving forwards, but you can see again 54 pressure right in my lead toe. Still got plenty of pressure on my trail toe as well, because I'm going to look at my verticals that I'm getting ready to jump, and off I go. So when I come in to hit the ball, you can see I've moved slightly forwards. This is a common pattern with lots of good golfers, better ones than me. And when I hit the ball, look, 55% pressure on my lead foot, nowhere near as much as people always think. They think you should be like 100% over at this point. Now my feet start leaving the ground, so these pressures aren't really that accurate, in the sense that they are very accurate of what's physically happening, but my lead foot's barely on the ground now, which is why there's 80% on the trail, but as it lands on the front foot. So if I stayed more connected with that lead foot, I would be, 80-90% lead foot finishing up to 100% nearish, but always going to have some pressure on the trail foot unless you take it off the ground. Common issue with amateurs is we see bumps and then they stay there, then they rotate, this moves past. I definitely see bumps, recenters, huge slides, because people are thinking two-dimensional, getting across, they get way across. This often creates these kind of angles, which is horrible for it in the ground first, fatten and finning. Hands can get a little bit involved and we start seeing some big curvature. So for you, thinking about staying quite centered, but actually thinking about downs and ups and torques a little bit more through rotations might help you with your strike and what have you. But your general patterns, you ask what the patterns are. It's a bump to the right, it's a recenter, it's a shift to the lead side with rotations and coming out of the ground. and it's really small. It's so subtle, much more subtle than people often think. It's the forces in the ground that are not subtle. It's the way they're pushing and pulling and jumping, turning and twisting. And remember, at the same time, all those forces have to match up what your face is doing. So if I am someone who wants to, say, de-loft a lot, I might be using lots of horizontal and less vertical. If I want to add loft, I might be using more vertical, so jumping more. They've got a balance for you, which is always the hard bit. That's more of an overview than a fix. Hopefully that gives you an idea of how those weight shift, pressure shifts might work for some golfers.